My name is Guglielmo Grimaldi, and this is the video abstract for the paper Combinatorial Properties of Holographic Entropy Inequalities by Matthew Hedrick, Veronica Hubini, Pavel Steiner, and myself. Holographic entropy inequalities originate from a question in quantum gravity, which can be entirely reformulated using the language of graph theory. To show how that comes about, we begin by considering a static state in the ADS-CFT correspondence, which admits representation in terms of Riemannian manifold with boundary, as shown here by a disk. We divide the boundary into regions, here we consider 4 as an example, which correspond to splitting the quantum system into 4 subsystems. The entanglement entropy of any set of regions can be computed by the area of the minimal surface homologous to the region it's computing the entropy of, and it's known as the Ryu-Takeinagi formula. We can draw all the remaining minimal surfaces which compute the entropy of all possible subsets of regions. We have obtained a decomposition of the disk into cells. We can assign a vertex to each cell and connect vertices that share a surface with an edge. We assign a weight to each edge that equals the area of the portion of surface that it cuts. We can now remove the underlying geometry, reducing the entire problem to an undirected weighted graph. The vertices that used to be associated to a single region, we color them in black and denote them as boundary vertices. We can enumerate them 1 through 4. Then, the Ryu-Takeinagi entropy formula equals the mean-cut function on this graph that takes as input any collection of boundary vertices and computes the minimum cut between such collection and the rest of the graph. For example, given the following weights on the edges, the minimum cut on vertices 1, 2, and 3 is the one shown, with a value of 3. For any graph, we can similarly compute the mean-cut function on any subset of the boundary vertices. Of special interest in physics is to study properties of this mean-cut function, and in particular, the so-called holographic entropy inequalities. These are linear constraints on the mean-cut function. Here are 2 examples of holographic entropy inequalities, known as strong subadditivity and monogamy of mutual information, and they are obeyed by the mean-cut function on any graph. There are many more such inequalities, and they have a rich structure, which however is yet to be understood fully. In a previous paper, 3 of us discovered connections between holographic entropy inequalities and majorization theory. Motivated by the physics, we restricted our attention to an interesting class of inequalities where one boundary vertex, also called party, appears inside every term in the inequality. We call these centered inequalities. In this paper, we continue studying this class of inequalities and prove a series of results that constrain their structure. To show you some of the properties we present in the paper, we will use the following holographic entropy inequality as an example. Notice that this inequality is centered, since the vertex 1 appears inside every single term. Now, consider a subset of the left-hand side terms, here highlighted in blue. Then, one can find an equally sized subset of the right-hand side terms that contains every vertex at least as many times as in the left. In this example, every vertex appears an equal number of times. We can look at a different subset, here highlighted in red, and the same property holds for some equally sized subset on the right-hand side. Here vertex 4 does not appear on the left-hand side, but it appears once on the right-hand side. If this property holds for every subset, then we say that the inequality obeys dominance, and we prove that it is a necessary property of centered HEIs. But it is not sufficient. If, however, dominance is preserved under inclusion relations, then it becomes both necessary and sufficient. For example, consider the following subset of the left-hand side terms with its corresponding subset on the right-hand side. If we consider a subset that's fully contained in the blue subset, then the corresponding subset will also be contained in the blue on the right. And this holds true for any other subset, as we show. We call this property inclusion dominance, and we prove it to be a criterion for centered HEIs. These results prove that all HEIs obey the majorization property defined in our previous work, giving strong new evidence that all HEIs are obeyed by time-dependent holographic states. We also introduce another property called region dominance, which is slightly different. Here we don't consider subsets of the terms, but subsets of the boundary vertices. and we ask how many times a subset of the vertices appears inside the terms on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. For example, 1, 2, 3 appears once on both sides, 1, 2, 3 times on both sides, and 2, 4, 5, 0 times on the left and once on the right. If every subset appears more often on the right than on the left, we say the inequality obeys region dominance, and we show that it is a necessary property of centered HEIs. We prove many more properties, and also resolve the 4 conjectures from the previous paper, 2 of which we prove, and 2, going in the opposite direction, we provide counterexamples to, as shown in this diagram that shows all logical relations. If you want to understand more about all these exciting results, we invite you to read the paper, which we have written in a self-contained way. Thank you.